All right, you guys, we're back for another episode in season 4 of the Man Camp podcast. One of the cool things about this season, besides the fact that we have video, is there are some returning guests that have been on past seasons. There's also some new guests. And in this episode, my buddy Jake Freels, who you can see on the TV, we are utilizing the world of Zoom and technology to link you and us together as we continue to go after this theme of the pursuit. And so in season 3 of the Man Camp podcast, Jake was on and he shared some of his story. If you haven't heard that episode, I encourage you to go back and listen to that. His story is incredible. But in this episode and this theme that we're going after in season 4, where we're looking at the pursuit, the things that we go after, the things that we're pursuing, the things that we're not just doing, but we're taking a hold of in our destiny and what we were created for as men. Jake, who's been an incredible friend, we've gone on a ton of adventures together, gotten to know each other for several years, is a part of something that's actually he's a contractor. He's in business, he's in ministry, he's got an amazing family. But one of the incredible things that he stumbled across that we're going to talk about today is this intentionality thing of gathering people together around what they call the table. And so I want Jake to kind of share your story. Jake, first of all, good to see you. As you can tell, he is in Texas. He's got the deer head in the background to prove it. And this guy is a man's man. He's good at a lot of things, which sometimes is frustrating, but I celebrate him. I mean, the guy, he can rope a cow, he can build a house, he can hunt anything, motocross, he's a great golfer, the list goes on, but he's definitely a Renaissance man. But first of all, how you doing, Jake? Good to see you.
Man, it's awesome to be here and just stoked to hang out for a little bit.
I love it. So we're gonna dive right into it. Like I've told you, our theme for this season is the pursuit. We have our mutual friend Zach Ernst on this season as well, who was in a previous season with the Man Camp podcast as well. But we're gonna talk about this story in your life that is so cool. Skylar Smith, who is also going to be on another episode of this season. There's a group of us guys that we've been going after some of this stuff that we're talking about together, but they kind of overlap. But your story is around this thing of we're talking about the pursuit of community, the pursuit of being known, the pursuit of breakthrough in the context of relationship, a community, stepping out of isolation. And you started doing something, it's not new, it's actually very old, around gathering people around a table. So can you take us back to like what happened, where it started, and then as you guys are going to hear, what's come out of this is incredible, and our prayer is that this catches on for you. But let's start, Jake. Tell us, take us back to the beginning and what happened and how this thing started.
Yeah, so it's pretty fascinating. Whenever I moved back to Stephenville, Texas, which was my hometown, the Lord asked me to come alongside this cowboy church, because we have cowboy churches in Texas.
Which, just pause there for a second. That's like a whole nother episode, but there are cowboy churches out there. I've been there, and it is absolutely a cowboy church. People are packing, they're carrying, they've got boots, hats, guns, everything.
It's the full meal deal. It's cowboy in every way, shape, and form, and so I grew up, in the cowboy culture and all of that. So anyways, when he moved me back there, they didn't have a youth group. And the Lord gave me a challenge. He said, I want you to build a youth group for them. And I said, okay, great, Lord, I'll help build a youth group for them. I said, what do you want me to do? And the Lord said very clearly, he said, build a table and invite them to come. And I was like, that's it? Like, build a table? And he's like, yeah, build a table and invite them to come. So best as I know, as Texans, I build a table out of cedar and, all this custom stuff to seat about 30 people, is this big, long table. And the Lord said, honor them and create family. And so I make them all ribeye steak dinners.
Just Selah. Just pause right there.
Yeah, okay. That's just the glory of the Lord. If the glory of the Lord doesn't show up around a ribeye steak dinner, then something's wrong with you. So we just set the table, and I got up in front of the church, and I said, hey, we're going to do something, and we're going to invite you. If you're anywhere, any of you in the age of 17 and under, and you want to come spend time with us, we want to invite you over for dinner. And and that's it. And I just set the table, and just said, anybody come. And lo and behold, the table was full the first night.
Yeah.
And what we began to see was absolutely just mind blowing. So God began to reveal how this generation, most of them had never sat at a table and had dinner as a family, any of their personal families. So this is their first time ever actually sitting down at a table, having dinner with a mom and dad figure. And I said, there's no phones allowed at the table. And if someone's talking, then nobody else can talk. So I just kind of set some ground rules, like we're going to be spending time as family, and that's the whole purpose of this table. And then later I would find out that 75% of that table were kids without a mom or a dad, and it was a fatherless and motherless generation that sat at that table with me. And then God began to add to that number of to that table just over and over and over and over. And we saw this incredible thing taking place, and him instilling family in a generation that had never seen it personally, practically played out.
So how long ago was this? This started with the youth.
That was 6 years ago.
Wow. And so this progressed, like there was something there that kept growing.
Yeah, so I just stayed faithful to that. I said, hey, look, there's going to be no smoke, lights. We're not even going to have worship sets. We're not going to do anything that you think most youth groups look like. We're literally going to show up and be present at the table every week. And that's our goal. And over the next 6 months, between that and sharing with other youth, we saw somewhere around 160 kids give their life to the Lord.
Come on, that's amazing.
And God just did something really special. And he and I would have never have done that. I would have never have built a table and started a youth group for that church that way. And that's what we did. So fast forward, I'm praying in the center of the city, and I do these rallies where I'll gather the whole city together and do those. And Zach, you were at one of those with me. And in this next one, I'm praying in the center of the city, and the Lord goes, build a table and invite them to come. And I'm like, well, what does that look like? This is an outdoor gathering, like build a table and invite them to come again. And he said, just build a table and invite them to come, share the vision. So back up, about a year and a half prior, a good friend of mine invited a bunch of us guys together and said, hey, I need to learn how to hear Holy Spirit. And I want to just gather a table together. I need to just ask you all questions. How do I hear God? So we all independently just said, yes, we'll all come to the table and talk about that. But what the table began to turn into was all of us just becoming ultra vulnerable and sharing our hearts and lives together. And things started happening in a dramatic way. And these are guys from all different walks of life, denominations, you name it. Like it's a mosh podge of just like dudes that came together. And our main topic was just, does God speak, and can he still speak today? And we're going to ask a bunch of questions that way. So here we are around this table, and I bring this concept back to the table. I walked to the table one day and sat down, and I said, hey guys, this is what the Lord told me. I said, I was praying at the center of the city at 4 a.m. and all of a sudden I had an encounter with God, and he told me to build a table. Well, one of the guys from the table goes, we got this. We'll build the table. And I was like, go for it. I was like, I don't know what it's supposed to look like. I don't even know what it's supposed to be. I said, I'm just telling you what the Lord told me. And so he has a guy in his church. It's an engineer. They go up and measure. There's a concrete pad on the top of this pavilion at the very top of the hill. And then the pavilion's down in the bottom. And so this giant concrete pad is 134 feet long. So they build a table that could assemble to 134 feet long.
Wow.
And when it's assembled, it seated 120 people.
Man.
And I was just like, God, you're setting an upper room moment in the center of the city Like, you're going to pour out your spirit. I don't know what's about to happen, and I'm just in that giddy mystery of like, I'm just listening to him tell me what to do. That's it, and not making this thing complicated. The biggest thing that night was we set the dining table and we did fine dining. We did all these decorations, had professional decorators come in. We had all of it set. So it just looked like a banquet table. And that's what the Lord said. He said, this is a dinner with the king. This is a night to dine with the king. And if nobody's ever dined with the king before or seen the Father, then it's a time to go sit at the seat at the table. And so, we had a giant gathering of the city come together. And I said, guys, tonight you're not responding to the stage. You're not responding to an altar call. Tonight's a night to go dine with the Father. Whether you need healing, deliverance, salvation, community, whatever you need tonight, I asked that you would go take a chance and sit at the table. And I had all the pastors and leaders of the city standing at the table waiting for the people to come. Wow. And what we ended up watching was hundreds of people, literally hundreds of people, begin filling the table over the next duration of the entire night. And I just sit back and I'm just going, what in the world? Like, that's not how I would have done it. Like, I've done gatherings and stadium gatherings and giant gatherings for years and years, but this was not how he said to do it. And this is what he said he said, I want to set the table for my bride. And I want them to sit and dine with me. And so that happens. The table group's going with the guys, and they all actually undergirded the entire event. They're the guys that actually ended up putting their voices on the line and standing up and going, God wants to bring revival to this city. And we're asking that you partner with us and join with us and meet us in the city. And it became this thing of like these table guys. We call it the sword group is what we call it. But
that's a good name.
Yeah, this sword group of guys just took ownership of this thing and ran with it. Fully funded the whole thing. They got behind the whole thing, and then they ended up just being the true, I would say, leaders of that entire movement of that night. And so, to say that I have an idea of what's going on, and I have this great plan, is false. It's just literally the Lord has just instructed me numerous times, just build a table and set a place for somebody to sit down, and be open, vulnerable, and honest with them. And I did that with the city that night. Even that night, I got up and I spoke, and I'm holding my son, one of my youngest, in my arms. And I said, hey, look, I'm going to be the first one to tell you right now. I said, I believe in healing more than anybody I think out here, but I'm going to tell you, my wife also has scoliosis and has one of the, biggest healing things that we need. And I said, and she hasn't been healed. But what I do know is if you never sit at the table and you don't ever take a chance, you'll never know if you'll ever be healed. And I said, and if you've never met him, then I'm telling you, you need to just go sit at the table and see if you could meet him, and the Lord was just really pressing upon my heart to be honest and vulnerable, and not lead from a place of just faith and courage and, just let's do this, let's go for revival, let's see miracles. But it was really a place of like understanding and compassion and vulnerability. And that's what I've seen mark the tables. And that's what's actually changed the game is vulnerability leads the way to transformation, and transformation transforms lives. It transforms cities. And it transformed everything we know. So,
wow, Jake, that's incredible. I know that this is continuing, so I want to come back to this and even share some specific stories of people that have been impacted by the table. But you mentioned something about vulnerability, or what began to happen as you set the table, as you invited people in. I was reading this book. It's Out of Solitude by Henry Nouwen, and he says something in this book that just rocked me. And I thought of this as you were talking about what you began to see happen, specifically in this area of vulnerability. He says, and he's talking about solitude and the power of knowing who we are and identity, and which is challenging, as we know. But he says, and we are in serious danger of becoming isolated, since friendship and love are impossible without mutual vulnerability. And you kind of already said this, but I had to read that because I think this is one of the things that we long for. It's one of the sources of, we often look at, we're talking about men, or maybe some of the struggles that guys face, whether it's any form of addiction or any even dysfunction in our life, that's not the root issue. So many of us, there's shame, there's this thing, we're isolated, and the reason we're isolated is we are afraid of being vulnerable and fully known, because the lie is then I will be rejected. And so we make our identity what we do, and it's pretense and it's performance and all these things. But I share all that to say is, like, there's this mutual vulnerability that opens the door, and you'll share some of these stories of in your own life and people, like, radical transformation. But it wasn't like someone coming in, altar call, like we love all that. There's nothing wrong with any of it, but there is a deeper thing. And I'll say this last thing and then let you share some more about this. Is you and I have this thing of the table. We've been a part of several guys trips where we've been sitting around a table, and nothing fancy. We ask some honest questions like, how you doing? And there's this safety and this place where we create it. We set the table, not just with food, but this permission to have a mutual vulnerability. And guys just open up. And I mean, you've been there. We've been to these things, and it is crazy. Like, you can't orchestrate, plan, but whether it's a guy you never thought would be crying, the stuff that they're sharing, but more importantly, the freedom that comes. And it's just like powerful. You sit in these around these tables, and you're like, this is the best thing ever, because you're watching your friend get free, and you're getting free as a result. So I say all to say is, like, I love this thing, but can you, two things hit. I'd love for you to share some of the maybe specific stories of, like, what we're talking about happening as this table set where vulnerability is happening. And then, the following thing, and this is what we'll end off with, is like, it's not complicated, it's simple, but it does require a pursuit, an intentionality, and it's available to all of us, but not all of us are going to encounter this if we don't pursue it.
Yeah, I say it this way. It's my favorite saying is, courage is being scared to death and saddling up anyways.
Come on.
I think it's that number one thing. Every one of us is definitely afraid of being totally naked and vulnerable in front of a group of your peers, and just going, here's my inner struggle, my inner pain, my inner difficulties, or this is what I'm not proud of. This is what whatever that is, right? Whatever it is to mean, just be vulnerable and open in front of people. I mean, that's the scariest thing in the world, for most men. And if they've never seen it modeled or never seen it, like, vulnerability lead the way, then they won't ever step out. So that's why vulnerability only breeds vulnerability. And the most courageous man in the room is the most vulnerable man in the room. And I say that all the time, and it takes courage to be vulnerable, and it takes courage to lay yourself on the line in front of other guys and go, man, here's the stuff that, I'm not proud of, or whatever it is, So, I mean, I think that's what the beauty of those trips are, is that, when all of a sudden you see a guy open his chest up and he just exposes the darkness, or exposes the lies, or exposes whatever it is. And then all the other dudes just rush in with love and joy to just meet him where he's at. And they're like, dude, we're going to go to war with you. We're going to battle with you. Like, you're not alone. And a matter of fact, I didn't have the guts to stand up and say it, but I battle with the same thing you do. And then all of a sudden, I do too. I do too. I do too. And the whole, half the table goes, we all battle with what you're saying. And now, just because one guy stood up and said, man, I battle with pornography, half the table stands up and goes, I do too. And because of your courage and because of your boldness, I'm willing to meet you at the table and go, I need freedom too. And I think that's the beauty of it, right? I think that's what's so amazing, is that we're watching this play out. I'm personally watching it play out to where, back at one of our meetings years ago, I spoke up and I said, I'm struggling with pornography in this specific area. And I said, and it has nothing to do with lust. It has everything to do with my nurturing security, that it's been my nurturer and it's secured me when I'm stressed, I'm worried, I'm depressed, whatever it is. And it nurtured me. And I said, once I found that line, it actually severed, and I actually found freedom from it and walked out of it. I said, then it was real. Then it was like, oh, I know how to fight that battle and I know how to defeat it. It's not, don't look at a woman, or let your eyes be only to the Lord, or all the things you can say, all the Christian things we can say. But it wasn't until I really asked the real question of what is it doing for me and why do I run to it, that I found the freedom. Well, fast forward to last night. We're sitting there with guys that we haven't got to meet for a long time. Some of us, one of the guys actually moved overseas into a Muslim nation from the table and was helping plant and grow a church over there.
Wow.
While being an engineer. And he gets back, we get to sit at the table, another guy. Anyways, we all begin to have this conversation, and guys were going, hey, did you know I'm free from pornography? Another guy goes, hey, did you know I'm free from pornography? Hey, another guy goes, I'm free from pornography. Hey, and like, these were all guys that years ago were struggling. And these are 20-year battles, 25-year battles. This isn't like some small little thing. These are like monumental breakthroughs. And every one of them found the identity of what it actually, the root of it was.
Yeah.
And why it came. And all of a sudden you're seeing these dudes are glowing, man. They're like, and one of the guys said specifically, I thought I would never defeat this. And I thought this would be the story of my life for the rest of my life, and he goes, but it's over and I've won and it's done, and, we're all just, we could, cheering and just stoked, and we're like, dude, you beat it, you did it, and we're here with you and, all that stuff. But you also hear the stories at the table of guys in their marriages and just going, man, I'm contending to just want to hear from the Lord for my wife, for my marriage, for what I'm doing. And specifically, the Lord told me this week to build a table for my own house. And so I built a custom table for my own house this week. And here I am. I set it in the table and I put it in the house. And lo and behold, the Lord's like, I just want you to listen to your wife at the table.
Wow.
That's your job. That's your responsibility. I want you to hear her. I want you to set the table for her.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, man, we're having dialogue and conversation. It's going next level. And it's just because we're sitting at a table. Again, it's not my plan. It's not how I would do it. I mean, we talk all the time. My wife and I have a great relationship, but there was something about the Lord saying, set a table and sit at it. And be intentional with your conversation with her, but listen specifically. And so, I think there's something beautiful about this. And when you look at scripture and you research it all, the table began in the Holy of Holies, and God asked them to build a table for the bread of presence to rest upon. Right before the Holy of Holies you walked in was the bread of presence. It's God's presence was supposed to rest on the table. When you go fast forward to the New Testament, what was the one thing God flipped over in the temple? The table.
Yeah.
You've removed the principle of my presence, and that I want to meet you at this place, and you've created it as a den of robbers. And then you go to the Passover meal is at the table. You go to Jesus reclining with his disciples at the table. Numerous times it talks about it. You talk about the wedding banquet feast of when Jesus is coming back is going to be at a table. And I just started researching the Bible everywhere, just going, why is this table changing the way I'm seeing things happen? And why is there so much fruit? And it's in the principle of God designed the table. The first ever table that we know in recorded history was that table in the temple in the presence that the bread set upon. There was no designed table before that.
So good. I love to, like, we look at, you see this, like you're talking about all throughout scripture, and it's crazy because you're like, what? Like, sometimes the most obvious things are right there. I love Psalms 23, like, you prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemy. But there's two things that I like. So this theme that we're going after is the pursuit. And so the thing that I want to kind of close with is there's really two elements. I mean, you hear this in your story, but kind of taking this to each guy that's listening and really making it practical. Like, how do we pursue this? Like in your story, and I've heard you say this a couple of times, even as we're talking, is you heard God say, prepare a table or set a table. So there was the act of doing that. But the other part is then you have to bring yourself to sit at the table.
Yeah.
And so there are different points, like there's this thing of we don't just do it for others, which that is part of it, like for you with your wife or these guys in your city. But like you, and I know you, and I've been at a table with you, there's also an element you got to bring yourself. It's not just us doing this for other people. And I just want to practically, like, this is so simple. I mean, this concept of a meal is it translates to every culture, society. Like it's a symbol or a picture of intimacy, relationship, community, the things that we long for, family.
Yeah.
And like what you're talking about with, where it started with your youth, like it's restoring lost, home, family, parents. But back to this practical thing, we set the table, we show up and sit at the table. What would you say as we close here to the guys listening? Because listen, I pray, this is our prayer, that you get inspired and you're like, I'm going to do this for, my city, a group of guys, maybe like you're doing in my own family. Like, this is beautiful. Like, we've lost this thing of family dinners, and we've got devices and schedules and like just sitting down and having a meal together. Like, so what would you say to specifically practically challenge men? How do we set the table? How do we show up at the table?
Yeah. It's said this way, there's nobody sitting at the head of the table except Jesus, so it's not our job to be the head or to run it or show up and perform. The biggest thing about what Jesus is saying is we show up at the table and be willing to share life, be willing to invest in relationship, be willing to receive and give. Like, this is not like you said a minute ago, we don't build the tables just to give and give and give and give and give. And it's something that we do. It's something that you get to participate in. Like, it's a all play game. We all are going to sit here, and what I need for breakthrough is hidden in you. And what you need for breakthrough is hidden in me. And what we ultimately need for breakthrough is hidden in Jesus. And he's sitting at this table too.
Come on.
And so it's this moment of us coming together and going, none of us have all the answers, but together we are so much better, and we are better together than alone. And if you think about back in the day of the kings, you never got invited to the king's table unless you were honored and invited, and so the table is a very special place. Like, even if you get invited to somebody's home, and to sit at their dinner table, is a special deal. I mean, if you think of any celebrity in your mind that you think, oh man, if I ever got to eat with that guy or that girl or whatever it was, or your favorite football player, whoever it is, and they invited you over for dinner, man, you would feel 10 times honored. And I think we've lost that art as well. And I think we've lost the realization of, man, inviting people into our home and just creating a place of communion, a place to just, hey, we're just going to talk. We're just going to share life together, and let the Lord lead. Let the Lord lead you on what to say. And all of a sudden you'll find yourself maybe just growing a relationship with somebody, and it matures over time, or maybe God shows up and it's a major encounter that happens at the table.
So good, man. I love this. Wow. Listen, often I've found this to be true in my own life. Often the simplest thing brings the greatest, most profound impact and change. And so I think this is a great example of that. Jake, I cannot wait to sit at the table with you again.
Yeah.
We'll show you. We already were putting up some pictures in the midst of this interview of some of the tables that Jake's built, not just the actual physical table, but the people that were at the table. And as we close today, I want to encourage you. I want to challenge you. I want to invite you to ask yourself this question. Do I have a table that I've set in my life, specifically in the areas where there's the greatest need? Your family, maybe you feel alone, isolated, community, strength. Do you have a table? 1, 2, are you sitting there? For many of you, you may need to go sit at a table that you've left, or maybe you need to create it like Jake did. Whatever it is, my prayer for you, for me, for us, is that we would pursue these things that can be found at the table. It's community, it's vulnerability, it's being known, it's freedom, it's breakthrough, it's healing. And I think in hearing this story, I'm sure you've been encouraged, inspired, and it's simple, but no one can do this for you. So as we close today, I want to encourage you, man, build a table, sit at the table. Let's go after this. I think it's so key. It's something that we need to pursue, guard in our life. As we close, as always, we want to encourage you, share your stories. So you can send us an email at mancamp@jesusculture.com. Follow us on Instagram at mancamp_podcast or Facebook. We love to hear from you. Jake, thank you so much for being a part of this new season video. I love you, dude. I love getting to do life with you. So appreciate you, man.
Yeah, same here. And just so grateful. I think if revival began at everybody's table, we couldn't point it at some person that started it. But I think this nation would be turned upside down if it began.
Come on. So good. So with that, we're going to close out this episode of the Man Camp Podcast Season 4. So honored that you're on this journey with us. We'll see you in the next episode. Let's go after this. Let's pursue these things in our life. And we pray you're encouraged and challenged. Thanks again for being a part of this community. Until next episode, let's go after this. Live fully alive. Let's set tables and sit at tables. Bless you guys.